Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Timmy, and we are going to talk about horror movies, as we always do. This one is going to be about the Grudge 3. Why are we talking about the Grudge 3? It's a very good question. Because we've done all of them so far.
So you might as well complete the trilogy.
Well, I say all of them. We did the 3 Japanese Ring movies. We then did the 2 American Ring movies, although there's soon to be a third, but more on that shortly. We did the 2 Japanese Grudge movies. Now, when I say that, I mean just the 2 Grudge movies, not the rest of the Ju-on, because there's a whole bunch of them that are more obscure and that stuff. And then we did the American Grudge, the sequel, the Grudge 2, and this is the Grudge 3. So we're sort of wrapping up, because the next episode, which you're also going to get this week, is Sadako versus Kayako, which is the new Japanese movie, which pits the girl from The Ring versus the girl from The Grudge.
Fantastic. Long time in the making for that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. I appreciate your enthusiasm. I don't know. I feel like it might be a train wreck. I've not watched it yet, but we'll that's later this week. We'll get there.
We'll see.
So this is us wrapping up the American Grudge movies, at least so far. They could make more. I don't know. But yeah, so the Grudge...
They might do like a reboot like in 5 years and do Grudges or something.
They very well might. I could see them doing it. So Grudge 3 came out in 2009, so about 3 years after the second one. I believe this was direct-to-video at the time of its release. You can tell.
Oh yeah.
You can very much tell. So we'll start spoiler free for a little bit. I mean, I don't know if you'll care, but we'll give you the general idea of how we feel, and then we'll go into spoilers. Tim.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the Grudge 3?
No. Can't really say that I did, unfortunately.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's which it was a little, I don't want to say high hopes, but I was pleasantly surprised with like Grudge 2. Like I was like, I actually kind of like Grudge 2. It wasn't, you tend to think that, I don't know, or maybe it's a little pessimistic, but normally that, sequels get kind of worse and worse as they go. And, but yeah, I've been pretty much happy with most of these movies so far. And then, yeah, this was just a pretty steep downward fall.
I think you like Grudge 2 more than I did. I didn't hate it. I think my general opinion of Grudge 2 after we watched it was, yeah, it was kind of mediocre. It was your typical sequel, but it wasn't the train wreck I was expecting it to be. So it came out in a sort of positive light because it wasn't as bad as I kind of was expecting it.
Right. No, that's pretty much how I feel. Yeah. Like it's not amazing or anything great. Certainly not as good as the first one, but you expect it to be garbage, and then it's like, oh no, this is actually watchable.
Yeah, it's watchable. That's a very good word for it. The Grudge 2 was a watchable sequel that isn't going to rock your world. Honestly, my biggest complaint about the Grudge 2 in hindsight, now that I've watched the Grudge 3, is how forgettable it is, because I couldn't remember a goddamn thing about it.
Yeah.
Because at the start, because one of the characters, the surviving character from the last one, is in this one, and it took me, I was like, was this the kid from the last movie? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Is it? I think it is. And it was, but it really took me a while to sort of remember, okay, yeah, it was set in this apartment building, girl came back from Japan, and she brought the curse with her, and
I mean, it also makes it kind of weird. I don't think this is really a spoiler, because it might be a spoiler for Grudge 2, if you haven't seen that.
You have been warned, there's a spoiler for Grudge 2 about to drop.
Yeah. But I was very surprised that this kid was alive. Because I thought that was pretty much the ending was basically him getting killed in Grudge 2, right? Or at least you were led to kind of believe that.
It's the same with the first Grudge to the second one. Spoilers for the first Grudge movie with the American one, but it ends with like Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, like Kayako, like pops up behind her, and it's like cut to credits, and then we get to the second movie, and she's in an insane asylum, or she's in a mental hospital, and then end of the second one, Kayako pops up and comes towards the kid. Cut to the third one.
It's in his like hoodie, right?
Yeah. It was the hoodie was like lying down on the floor and it came up. Yeah. But Kayako shows up to get the kid, you think, oh, that's the ending, the kid's dead, and then the third one starts with, oh no, he's in a mental hospital. And much like, I love how, because we joked when, again, spoilers for the last two, but we joked about how Sarah Michelle Gellar came back for the second movie, but it was very much that typical, I'll come back for a couple of scenes, but you need to kill me off as quickly as humanly possible. I like that they had to do that with the kid. Like, the kid's a big name. Who's like, I'm not doing this directing video. I'll do two scenes. I like that he argued that he shouldn't do that much. So yeah, the movie sucks. To boil it down to a sentence, the movie is really bad. It's very typical sort of direct-to-video sequel. It's mostly set in the apartment building. You can tell they couldn't afford to go many other... Unlike It Watches, though, it looks more like a movie. At least, sure, they're confined to the one location, but it's at least has the budget to look like a movie. The direction is not very inspired, though. The acting across the board is pretty much terrible. Because the main characters, we've got a family who are kind of the main characters. We've got Lisa, who is like early 20s, her slightly older brother, Max, and then their little sister, who they're looking after because their parents are dead, who's like 6 or 7, something like that. And she's a sick little girl. I don't know, I don't even remember what condition she has, but she has like an oxygen mask that she needs to use occasionally.
Yeah, I don't think they were super clear on it, or if they were, it's just forgettable.
The little girl's terrible. Almost every reaction she gives feels really like forced and fake. The guy who's playing Max is atrocious. He's got that thing where every line of dialogue that he gives sounds like he's reading it off a page. It really does. That's what it sounds like the whole time. And what's worse about it is the characters are really annoying because her character Lisa, she's like she's like a fashion designer or something like that, and her boyfriend, her boyfriend Andy, is just her boyfriend, but he's going to move to New York with her, and he's going to model the stuff she wears. I guess congratulations on flipping the stereotype, I guess, because typically you'd expect the guy is the designer and the woman is the model. So fair play. You've done something progressive there, I suppose. But they're going to leave to go to New York, and Max isn't particularly pleased with this because it's kind of leaving him and little Rose, who's the little sister, by themselves. And almost every conversation Lisa and Max have is Max be going, well, it won't matter in a couple of days because you're leaving. Oh, you're leaving us behind. Every single conversation, it's him making digs and complaining that she's abandoning them in like really passive-aggressive ways. And it just goes around in circles. It just keeps going over and over.
Yeah, it's at one point. Well, I think like from pretty much the first interaction, it's kind of like, yeah, we get it.
Yeah,
because you don't need to constantly bring it up.
Yeah, Max is the landlord for this apartment building, but the apartment building is practically empty because after the events of the last movie, everyone's moved out, understandably. So the owner of the building is coming by and giving him crap, who's also a terrible actor, might I add. Oh dear. And this is basically an hour of the movie, by the way. The movie's 90 minutes long, and it's almost an hour before we really get to anything.
Yeah, happening. It tends to drag. It's a shame because there were moments in here where like I could kind of feel like, oh, I would have liked this scene if it was like, not the typical like straight to DVD production, you know what I mean? Like there are some scenes I was like, oh, this would be cool if the budget was a little better and
someone directed it better.
Yeah.
This is worth noting, actually. The first two movies were both directed by Takeshi Shimizu, who did the first two Japanese movies as well. And this is the first one. It's the first Grudge movie I've seen that's not directed by him, and it's so bog standard. And as well as the second one was nowhere near as good as the first one, it still kind of had that offbeat feeling to it, where it was kind of different. Whereas this feels like it's just a typical American direct-to-video, no style to it whatsoever. In fact, one of my biggest complaints about the movie actually is that everything's really bright. Like most of the scenes take place during the day. It's practically like a sitcom half the time. Everything's really bright. There's scenes where like Kayako's just walking down the hallway and it's like brightly lit, and she's just walking, and it's just okay.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a little strange. It's kind of dull, is the way I would describe it. Yeah, like none of the settings are really that interesting. I mean, it basically is all the apartment building, but even the apartment building, like everything looks like very bland and just uninteresting.
Yeah, it's all the hallways look the same, as you'd expect. Which normally I like this kind of scenario where you've set a movie in an apartment building, but it normally works because you have like a variety of characters who sort of make each like sort of place feel unique. You know, you have the apartment with the cookie ones, you have the apartment with the sort of gruff old man, you have the apartment, you know, and you characterize it by all the different people. But the building's basically empty. The only other neighbor they have is Marina Sirtis from Star Trek: The Next Generation, who's slumming it. I guess she's not that she's the best actor in the world, so maybe she was destined to do this kind of thing if it wasn't for getting a role on a Star Trek show. But she's here and she's here for like 2 scenes. She like babysits for 1 scene, and I mean, okay, we'll go into full spoilers now because I don't want to dance around things. It's a terrible movie, so you shouldn't bother caring. But she dies in her 2nd scene. We get like
Is
weird...
she the painter lady?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was. I can't remember her name on Star Trek: The Next Generation. She's the empath.
I never watched Star Trek, so.
Oh, you never watched Star Trek? Okay, no, but people will know who I'm talking about. She dies in her 2nd scene. She's like a painter in the building, and it's like a rip off of The Ring. Actually, this scene because Kayako comes out of the painting exactly like Sudoku comes out of the TV in The Ring. It's exactly the same.
It seems like they were, yeah, like I don't know if they were trying to like almost cash in on The Ring or something
in 2009.
Or like just trying to, if they thought maybe that kind of would be more recognizable or something, because there's other instances that reminded me of Sadako, like you know, I believe in like the mental institution, where you see Kayako is like kind of standing and walking, and I feel like you just don't see her stand that much. You know, she's usually crawling around. That's kind of her thing.
Honestly, everything with Kayako and the kid whose name I'm forgetting, everything Toshio.
Oh, Toshio. Oh, okay.
The ghost kid, not the living kid. Toshio. Everything with them in this movie felt, quite frankly, shit. Like every single time they popped up, it felt so random. Like in the first movie, especially, and to an extent the last one as well, everything felt built up. Like every time you got to an appearance of them, it was like slow build of tension until they like appeared at the end. Here, there was like a scene literally where I think, is it the boyfriend? No, it's not a boyfriend. It's the Japanese girl who comes to visit. We haven't even got to that subplot yet. But there's a Japanese girl who comes from because she keeps having nightmares about Kayako, and when she first comes to talk to the landlord and that, we see her leave the building, and she goes out the front door, and the camera just like quick like snap pans across to another door, and Kayako's just staring. And it's so random. There's nothing to it. It's not scary or anything. It's just a shit little jump scare.
And it really makes you like appreciate how in like the first movie, like and you know, to an extent the second one and everything, like how restrained they are and how much more effective it is when, you know, you just get a little bit of Kayako versus where like, yeah, when you see her for like 2 minutes, like coming towards you or like standing upright and stuff, and just kind of like being there, it's like, oh, it's kind of taking out like the mystique and the creepiness.
At one point, Alex is in the hallway, and Kayako just kind of gets up out of like, it's like plastic wrap that's just there because people have been doing like painting or stuff. I think it's just like it's like a paint cover, but it's like a clear plastic kind of paint cover. And she just kind of rises up out of it for no reason. It just felt like, what built to this? What? There was no tension building to this reveal. It just happened for no reason. And the movie's kind of devoid of any of that. And the sad part is, it's not even... There's a couple of moments that almost become funny. Like, funny bad. Like, I'd call it amusing bad. There's a couple of amusing bad scenes. But unfortunately, it just peeks into it a couple of times, and the rest of the movie's just boring. Like, it is legitimately boring to watch. So... There you go. That's the general concept. I guess we have to talk about some specifics here. So, yeah, there's Nayako, who's a Japanese woman who comes to, because she's heard about what's happened in this building in Chicago, and we find out later that she's actually the sister of Kayako, and she knows about everything that went on, and she's going to try and get rid of the curse which she does by kind of doing the same thing that the mother used to do. We've seen this in the past movies, where the reason why Kayako has this thing to be born inside her in the first place is because her mother put all these evil spirits into her. Apparently, it seems like a bit running theme because she has to use Rose to do it, or not? Was it Rose? Aye, Rose.
Yeah.
Doubted myself there for a second. Because she has to use Rose to do it, so it implies that getting rid of curses involves like kind of putting them in little girls. Like it has to be a little girl, and or at least a little kid. Maybe a little boy would work as well.
Yeah.
But it's like the youth and the innocence have to like can hold it or something. I don't know. And so we get this scene that's really
curse at bay.
Yeah, we get this really goofy scene where she's all dressed up and she like forms like this like blood of Kayako sort of an adult thing, and she tries to make Rose drink it, and the big sister Lisa's just like, nah, that's not happening. But then the girl eventually drinks it, and it just magically makes everything end. The curse just stops like that because Kayako's about to kill Lisa. She's like right in, she's inches from her face, and then gone.
And this was really annoying because like that, that's easily the whole backstory with Kaiko's mom being like a priestess or whatever, and like exorcising demons and feeding her blood is easily like my least favorite part of the whole series. Like, did you really have to bring this back? Like, I wish we could just ignore it.
This is the thing with sequels; they always seem to do this in horror movies, where they try and, well, what can we do? We have to explore the backstory more. We'll have to over reveal everything. So that and this one even more so was just like, let's just explain it in a couple of sentences. Because there's a scene where Naoko explains to Lisa, oh, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this caused this, and it just explains it all out for you. It spells everything out.
Yeah.
Like, just in straight form. It's like it's nothing. Do you know who's also a terrible actor in this movie?
Is that?
Andy, the boyfriend character.
Oh, yeah.
Every line came out of his mouth. Terrible.
Their relationship is like just the most like cliche, like, hey, we're in a horror movie, let's keep trying to like run off and have sex. And
but Joe, was funny about that though, is like that part was cliched, but I almost feel like the core of the relationship was almost like it couldn't even be cliche. It didn't even reach that caliber, because it did this thing where she eventually decides, oh, I'm going to stay because my family needs me, and this is one of the only scenes. There's a couple of scenes in the mental asylum institute, and there's this one scene in a restaurant where she's telling him, "No, I'm not going to New York. I need to stay here," and he's all, "Oh, I'll stay here as well then, because you were the reason why I was going, so I'll stay here with you," and then he gets killed like a scene later. But what really cracks me up though is He takes her back home, and she realizes Rose is on her own, because this is the part of the movie where Max he's been kind of infected by the ghost of the dad from the story who killed people, and he's starting to go crazy. And we get this scene where Andy is leaving the house. He just like, kisses her goodbye. He's leaving to go to work, and she says, "I love you," and we get this wonderfully bad. This is when it got funny bad, where he kind of stops at the door. And he sort of slowly turns, and you can sort of see the contemplate. Well, I'm assuming it was meant to be contemplation. It was kind of hard to tell. Like I say, the acting not very good. And he slowly walks back and leans in and says, "I love you," and then they have another kiss. And I was like, "Am I supposed to care? Am I really supposed to care right now about this?" And then he leaves and dies immediately. Because
maybe
because he sees something is lured to one of the apartments where Ghost gets him. Yeah, done.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I guess it makes you want to see them die more.
I don't think
that counts for anything.
I don't think that's the effect that we're going for. Yeah, and the fact is this is like over an hour into the movie. I know this because the scene in there's a scene in the park actually, because this is where Naoko tells Lisa about everything. That scene in the park was at the 50-minute mark, because I checked. That's why I know this was like even further in than that. And up until that point, all that really happened, it was mainly about the drama of the family, the occasional jump scare, Lisa leaving, Lisa not leaving, all that stuff. And that was basically it. And there's like one scene where the doctor who was looking after Jake from the first movie, who dies at the start in the asylum, he's in his padded cell, and the ghost comes from him and he dies. So he breaks every bone in his body. and the doctor who was looking after him, Dr. Sullivan, who's played by Shawnee Smith, who's I guess got like a bit of horror cred because she was in Saw now.
Oh, okay.
Which, by the way, I love actually. See on the poster for this, it says on it at the top, Shawnee Smith, and then in brackets, Saw 1 through 5. And I'm like, okay, that's your star power, sure. And then, and then it said another name, which turned out to be the Jake kid. Right? The actor who played Jake. I'm like, was he famous or something? Like, do people know him from something else? It said Matthew Knight, which is his name, and then it said in brackets underneath, The Grudge 2. That is a selling point. This is the second biggest star you've got in the movie, is the guy from The Grudge 2. Surely Marina Sirtis would be a bigger name to put on the box. I don't know. Oh, dear.
I mean, at this point, is anyone, watching this other than the, mild curiosity of, hey, I really like the other Grudge movies, I guess I'll watch this,
And sad bastards like us.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. I guess we need to talk about the ending, shan't we? So they stop the curse, but before the curse actually gets stopped, Max is going crazy. We see some really random scenes of him where he's doing these just maintenance work around the building, and he's scraping off lettering that's on one of the doors. He's he's got his scraper and he's scraping the paint off, and he starts just kind of it basically starts quick cutting and sort of showing him move really quick as he's doing it. It's doing that kind of sort of kind of, I don't know, I can't do it. It's visually impossible, but it's sort of like he's going crazy. But all he's doing is scraping paint, and he's just sort of spazzing out, I guess. That's all he's really doing.
I don't know if there's a specific term for what you call those kind of shots or whatever, or that style, but I hate that effect.
It cuts to a quick shot of his head moving really fast and then back to just normal. Yeah, that's kind of thing.
It's just so, I don't know. Whenever I see it, it always kind of annoys me. And then, yeah, and I kept thinking oh, is there more significance to this? Because once he kind of steadies himself, it's kind of lingering on the letters and stuff. I kept trying to look all right, is there a clue in the letters? Did they leave the initials of someone or something? Is there? But no, it's just no, it's just there.
Yeah, he goes from terrible drama acting to terrible, I'm going to look scary, but that's what he turns into for the rest of the movie. It was a great scene where when Lisa realizes that Max is kind of screwed in the head and she has to get Rose out of there. There's this great scene where he's just sort of scraping at the wall in the hallway of his apartment, and Rose is in her bedroom door, and Lisa is over at the sort of the turn to go to the front door, and she's trying to get Rose to come to her, and she has to sneak past Max who's scraping at the wall, and it's they're trying so hard to make this tense and suspenseful, and it's not. It's just her walking past him. It's because it's part of the problem is it's all brightly lit. There's nothing. There's no sense of style, no sense of anything. It just it's so bland and forgettable. But anyway, he's going crazy, and during this whole ritual, he actually shows up and kills Naoko. He stabs her in the neck with a knife, which is probably the only time there's an interesting kill, because you see the knife come through her neck. And you get a little bit.
It almost feels like this is from a different movie or something, because up until now everything has been not too gory or gruesome or whatever, and then all of a sudden this is whoa, you're seeing the whatever tool blade thing he had go right through her neck.
It's I don't even know it's a knife, but it's a knife with this really sort of rough edge. It's got a sort of a lot of really sort of, it's the
looks like a saw kind of thing.
Yeah, it was almost it's a saw blade on a knife, kind of almost. Yeah. And he puts that. He picks it up from one of the DIY sort of workman benches that are around because they're doing maintenance, and he stabs her through the neck. And it's an okay kill. It's actually the only time I was like, oh, that looked kind of cool. Because up until this point, it could have been a PG, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. There was nothing in it up until this. So.
Now, I do want to dial back just real quick to one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Oh, go on.
with when Max gets fired. Uh, he's like, he's in the basement, and then they have the I don't know what you would call that guy. I guess if is Max the manager and he's the landlord or whatever is his boss.
Maybe,
I don't know.
I was calling Max the landlord. You might be right. He might be the landlord, and he's the sort of the maintenance guy. But
yeah.
But just before you actually talk about the scene, I just want to point out what Max is doing in this scene. He's counting bricks for some reason, or he's stacking bricks in the basement. I don't know what he's doing. He's moving
Shirtless.
bricks into a pile.
Yeah,
that's all he's doing.
And then like the landlord fires him, and then he hits him, and then like the landlord just looks like he's like sad, like not like freaked out, not like, oh, how dare you, I'm gonna call the cops or anything. He's just like looks all sad, like it didn't have to be this way.
Do you know what really struck me about the landlord character though is it was almost like they wanted to have like a villainous guy, but he wasn't at all. He actually seemed really reasonable and understanding. The first time he showed up, he's like, stuff is really bad. You've got a prospective new tenant, but I'm considering shifting to a new management company to run this place because things are really bad, and you understand. But he's really reasonable the entire time. He's giving him warning. He's talking to him about it. He's being open, and when he comes to fire him, he's very apologetic. He's like, sorry, but I've had to consider this, and I'm doing this, and it almost makes me feel like whoever wrote this movie, like, wanted that stereotype, but just didn't understand it to go. The same thing with the family drama of her leaving and like Rose being sick and staying to look after her, and that sort of that conflict. It's like, all right, I've read a script writing book. I know I'm supposed to have conflict, and there should be an arc, and her arc will be that she decides to stay, but they don't actually know how to write that. So it's just they've tried their best, but it just comes off as not knowing what they're doing, and
it's weird. Like nothing really feels like, I don't know, that genuine, I guess.
Yeah,
like
it's half-assed, or quarter-assed, an eighth-assed, 1/16th-assed.
Which is like again, like I think like there could have been probably not a great movie, but at least like a decent, like okay, mediocre movie if it was just more.
See, if you had more characters, you had more of the apartments filled, and you just made it about, okay, it's not going to have the style of the last ones, but if you built up some suspense sequences and just had it be about a ghost tormenting like all the different people in the building, it could have been an okay little direct-to-video sequel. Yeah. Sure, I mean, don't see why not, but as it is, it's painfully boring, and only once or twice gets amusingly bad, and then I was getting to the ending actually. So Max kills Nayako during all this proceedings, and then little Rose drinks the blood to end the curse. Ends the curse. Kayuko's gone. Toshio's gone. Everything seems fine. They come out the apartment and they see in the hallway that Max has killed Nayako. There's blood everywhere, and he's just like sort of snapped out of his thing. So presumably he's going to prison for this murder, even though it wasn't his fault and he doesn't remember doing it. And sure. Right, so then we have we have all that, and then we get the sort of, I guess, the twist, the reveal, I guess.
Sure.
If you want to call it that. So because Max killed Nayako, who also was there with Kayuko when they were kids getting fed these spirits, a new curse is born, and now Nayako is a John ghost curse thing, and she comes crawling towards people and kills them.
Yeah. Ooh.
And then the final shot of the movie, which is outside, all the police and the ambulances have all arrived, and we have Lisa hugs Rose, and the camera spins around and shows Kayuko instead of Rose, sort of showing that Kayuko's inside her. Which I guess to me means that if anything bad ever happens to Rose, it'll create a new curse. Just the same way that Kayuko had a curse and had all these like spirits and stuff in her, and that created a curse when she died violently.
Yeah. I didn't care about any of this.
That is fair. I did not care myself. Honestly, Tim, my thinking here is that the whole they ended the curse, but a new curse is born because the sister of Kaioku dies. I actually don't hate that idea, but the problem is that Naoko's not a main character in this. She's a side plot at best. We see her wake up in Japan at the start. She talks to her husband about she has to go to Chicago and try and stop this. We see her meet them once or twice. She has a scene where she just dumps exposition onto her, and then it's I'm coming to you for help. Can you help us, crazy Japanese lady? And she's like, yes, I will perform ritual to get rid of curse. And that's it. She's not got a character. She's just kind of there to service the plot. So I didn't care when she came back as a curse.
Yeah, there isn't really any weight to it. And I hate to spring this on you, because I'm not sure if you know, but has she ever been mentioned in any of the other movies? Anything about Kayako having a sister? I don't remember, but I
do not remember. There's scenes, they show scenes of like them being kids and like Kayako being fed the blood, like in some flashbacks in this. And I honestly don't think there was a sister in those scenes when we saw them before. I could be wrong, but I don't remember her.
Yeah, because I was trying to think of that as well, but I mean that's just another thing that just makes it like I don't care about her. Feels like she was just thrown in, like for this movie. Like it's not like we had this long established relationship with. It's her.
Another sequel thing, isn't it, where they always say, someone had a brother or a sister that we didn't know about, and that's how we have a plot for X movie. Like they do it all the time. It's another one of those tropes. So yeah, the movie sucks.
Yeah. A couple other scenes that did make me laugh was the one scene where like Rose is having like some kind of like attack or something. So the sister has to take out like her oxygen tank. It's like such a she's all nervous, like, oh my god, like I gotta do this real quick, but it takes her like forever to take it out of the box and assemble it. Like, why wouldn't you just give her like an easier disease where it's just like, I gotta give her a quick shot or something that will like not take 5 minutes.
Well, no, this is the problem though, is that she has two of these attacks. The first time she has the attack, it's Max that's there, and he pulls it out and it's already assembled. But then,
why not just do that?
Yeah, and it's all in different boxes, and she has to open them all. It would have almost been a funny scene if at the end, before it cut away, she held up the instructions and goes, right, how do I put this together? And just don't die, like... Rose. I'll be with you in a minute. Just.
It's just like I feel like to your point earlier where it feels like they're trying to create tension, but just doing such a poor job of it. Again, it feels like they're trying to create this sense of urgency, but it doesn't really feel urgent if you have to assemble something.
Yeah, most of the movie isn't urgent because for most of the movie, none of them are even scared there's a ghost. It's not until that scene. It's not until the scene in the park where Naoko gives all this exposition that they even have an idea that there could be a ghost. And then it's not until some crazier stuff happens that Lisa kind of believes there might be a ghost or something. We go an hour of the movie where none of the characters are aware of the threat. Yeah. It's really poorly put together. It doesn't. So there is no urgency. There's no build, no tension. It's just, and again, everything is brightly lit for some reason. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. It's lazy filmmaking, quite frankly.
And I forget that, but there was like a scene where I forget who it was that died, but they're like wheeling out a corpse.
It's it's Gretchen, which was Marina Sirtis's character.
Okay, yeah.
And for some reason, when it's halfway out the door, the head's not covered up, and then they cover it up.
Well, yeah, they say, I think it's like they say to Rose, like, "Oh, honey, don't look," and then you just see like the top of the corpse head, which is just horrific, and then there's like, "Oh, now we'll cover it up." But it's like, yeah, why would you not do that when you're wheeling it out? Like, why all of a sudden, like, people are looking?
I would almost accept it more if the body wasn't covered at all. But the idea they put the cover on, but just left the head uncovered. What?
This is like not that I would recommend watching this, but if you do watch it like with a friend, it might be kind of funny. For it'd probably be mostly boring, but there'd at least be a few scenes like that you could have a good chuckle.
I think it's like I said earlier. I think it just falls short of that. I think it's not funny. It's not bad funny and often enough to recommend it in that way. Whereas other movies I would recommend for that reason. This one, it's mostly boring, and there's just a couple of little moments like that that are kind of funny, and so which perked me up a little bit, but most of it was boring. Let's get to ratings, Tim. We have spent far too much time on this movie. Grudge 3 is terrible. That said, though, it's kind of sad that this is only the first movie in February of this year, and it's easily not the worst, or even the second worst movie we've seen so far in 2017 for this show.
I have high hopes. I think by the end of the year we're gonna have a nice little set of movies we've seen. But it's a rough start.
I hope you're right, but my rating out of 10 for this is... It's tough.
I don't know. I'll give you mine.
I'll
you out.
I'll take yours and then I'll go from there.
Analyze it. I'm gonna give it a 4. Okay. Just it's not good by any means, but I don't know. It wasn't definitely not the worst thing I've seen. And there was a few moments that again I was like, I want to like this scene. I think at least like the idea behind it or something. I don't know. But 4 is where I'm sticking.
I'm going to go a bit lower. I'm going to go with a 3. 3 out of 10. It's, I just spoke for half an hour explaining why it's a 3 out of 10, so it's a 3 out of 10. It's just...
Well, that's fitting, because it's the third movie.
That's what it is, yeah. So presumably if we get a Grudge 4, we can upgrade a point. It's just it's dull, it's boring, it feels cheap, it feels like they can't do a lot of things. The scares are just random and have no build to them, so it feels as a horror movie. I mean, they have the actress back to play Kayako, which is nice, but so that's about it.
Actually, one weird thing that I kind of liked about it is that like it was bad, but in a almost like a nostalgic way for me, because I feel like we don't get as many like straight to DVD like sequels like this anymore. So like watching it, I did kind of feel like, oh, this reminds me of like the crappy like straight to DVD horror movies I used to rent like in the 90s or something.
Well, that's a very specific thing. If you share that feeling with Tim, you might get something out of it.
I got like, oh, this is like watching like Children of the Corn 7 or something.
I feel like it has less charm than those do, though. That said, though, I've never seen past the third Children of the Corn, so don't quote me on that.
I'm just using that as an example because there's a million of them.
I get you. It's just it occasionally has some funny moments. Not enough to really save it, but it at least looks like a movie. It doesn't look like it was shot in shitio, and that counts for something. And I guess yes, it helps that I've seen 2 even worse movies in the last month. That's
true as well.
It scrapes up to a 3. So there you go. That's the Grudge 3. Let us know what you thought of the Grudge 3 if you're unfortunate enough to have seen it in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and remember that we will have a second episode this week discussing the much anticipated Sadako versus Kayako movie. And I love that every time I say those names, I think I slightly pronounce them differently every time. Just want to point that out. Yeah. I'm aware of it, people. I'm aware of it. But that's coming later this week. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe and all that stuff helps us out. Get us on Twitter at mild_fuzz. You can get me on Twitter at wibble89. You can get Tim on Twitter at timvergulish. And that's us. So thank you very much for watching. Just keep watching scary movies, and we'll see you next time.